But honestly, the way that we're going to deal with this is to have legislation that deals with high capacity magazines, assault weapons ban. That's how we're going to move forward, a national red flag ban. And that's how we're going to deal with this epidemic that we're seeing across the country. That's why we keep saying enough is enough. Congress
So
needs
that
to
is
act.
Karine Jean-Pierre just a few minutes ago answering a question about the tragedy that took place at Perry High School in Iowa this morning, the first day back at school after the new year, after Christmas break. And this is what students and teachers had to deal with. And we were giving you some of the latest just about that in covering it. Police, excellent job in response. They had a press conference already, and we only like to go with confirmed information. I don't go with speculation. I'm not going to go with stuff that I see on social media unless it's affirmed by law enforcement. So until it is, that's where we're gonna stick with all of the politics and activism in it. But I will say this rush to immediately politicize it and cite as motivation things which, as we just said, haven't been confirmed by law enforcement. That's needless, and it's the first reaction of the anti-Second Amendment lobby. Welcome back to the program. Dana Loesch here with you, bottom of this third hour. And of course, with this taking place in Iowa, Iowa is center stage because you have Iowa voting first here in just a couple of weeks. Iowa is also a very strong Second Amendment state. A year ago, they voted for constitutional carry. They actually saw crime decrease. We saw that happen in Ohio as well. Or actually, Ohio voted for constitutional carry. We saw that. We've seen a lot of the statistics on this, and this is a very important issue for a lot of Iowans. So how does this all play together without engaging in the fear mongering that we always see from the left? And one person who I always has thought has been very good tone-wise and message-wise and fact-wise on this is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who joins us now. It's been a very, very busy time for him, obviously. He's been campaigning in Iowa, also dealing with business back in Florida. Governor, it's good to be with you. Thank you for joining me. I just wanted to get your initial response as we've been covering, this awful news coming out of Iowa, just to the response here from KJP with the Biden White House on red flag laws for this and as a response.
Well, Dane, I mean, as a parent, we want our schools to be safe. And if you have somebody going to a school and doing this and shooting and injuring people and killing people, that's obviously a tragedy. We've done a lot in Florida, as you know, on putting an emphasis on school security. I've got a first grader, kindergartner, pre-K, so my wife and I are very concerned about making sure our schools are safe. We've done a lot of good stuff. It seems like, having talked to Governor Reynolds, that there was a very quick response to this. And it seems like the authorities did a really good job. What KJP is saying, that does not relate to any of the facts that I've been given about this shooting. So I think it proves your point that they try to use these things as leverage to be able to advance an agenda they already want to achieve anyways, regardless of the facts on the ground. Trying to make it hyper political, I don't think is the way to go. And I think as more facts come out, I think people will see that what she said was really off base.
One of the things that we do know, in talking with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, is that the suspect was apparently a known entity, for the lack of a better way to put it. That seems awfully common in these cases. Just your top line thoughts on that.
When the Parkland shooting happened in Florida, which you know well because you were down there in the aftermath, I was running for governor, so I wasn't governor yet. But before the reports even came out identifying who did it, the people in that community knew who did it because there were so many warning signs. And this is somebody that should have been held accountable multiple times. He should have had mental health intervention, all this other stuff. And so I think the tragedy in these situations is that all too often it's somebody that has a profile where this didn't just happen out of thin air, where they have exhibited behavior rooted in problems with mental health. So in Florida, we have, particularly in the high schools, things called behavioral threat assessment, where folks who are exhibiting these types of warning signs can have an intervention or be held accountable criminally if in fact they're guilty of doing that, like the shooter in Parkland was. And it's so often, I think, that people just want to bury their heads in the sand. And we'll see what happened with the warning signs here. But man, this guy's profile seems like this was somebody that you would not be surprised that they ended up doing something like this.
And that's true. And some of the information that's being shared, and as the governor mentioned too, I mean, we're waiting to get confirmation on that from law enforcement. But if that all is as being reported, that it's going to be very obvious, just as it was in the case with Parkland. Governor, you mentioned too some of the stuff that was implemented in Florida, and I know that Governor Rick Scott before you had signed into law red flag laws in Florida as part of it was sort of a gun control package, and I know that you were very much opposed to the red flag portion of it. You and I have spoken about this before with concerns over due process. I know that former President Trump had said he was in favor of red flag law. He was in favor of, I think the phrase was, take the guns first, then due process, which seems to be a backward way of approaching a cornerstone of our freedom in the country. But I wanted to get your thoughts on red flag laws. And I also wanted to know what, in your capacity as governor in Florida, because I know you have a legislature to work with, but a lot of people are curious as to if that is something that is going to be done away with in Florida. I know there are some Florida lawmakers very hesitant to do away with red flag laws. There are some that are supportive of it, but what can you do in your capacity as governor to move that along?
Well, first, when Donald Trump says take the guns first, then due process later, that's not just an attack on the Second Amendment. That's also an attack on the Fifth Amendment. Government can't take anything from you without due process. And yes, firearms are sensitive because it's an enumerated right in the Constitution, but they couldn't take your automobile or your TV set without due process. That's the cornerstone of a free society. And so I think the danger with red flag laws is that they countermand that. But then I think even something different, and you're right, in 2018, when that was done by the Florida legislature, I was a candidate for governor, and I said I would have vetoed that bill on constitutional grounds. Not the most popular position to take at the time, because there was understandably a lot of emotion in the aftermath of Parkland. It was a terrible thing, and there's an inclination to just want to do something. But you have to side with the Constitution when it's hard. If all you did was side when it was easy, then you wouldn't even need a Constitution, because that's the design is when you're against public opinion sometimes. But I think looking now compared to then, we've seen even more aggressive weaponization of government power. And so I think these things like red flag laws, if they were to be able to enact it federally, the Biden administration would weaponize that against people they don't like. And they would use that as an offensive tool to go after people's Second Amendment rights. I think that's plain as day. So that is a real serious warning sign in terms of what you're doing. And then what the legislature did in Florida in 18, even though I did oppose it, was narrower than what you've seen in these liberal states. In Florida, it can only be done through an elected sheriff. In some of these liberal states, you can just have someone off the street call in and say somebody, is a problem, and then they could go just off some one tip. So they're trying to tilt it in a way to really disfavor Second Amendment rights. And so that'll be a no-go with me.
Is that something that you think is maybe relatively soon would be undone in Florida, the existence of red flag law?
Well, I think the issue with that is the legislature passed that overwhelmingly. So you still have people who are in the legislature who are on record as voting for it. And a lot of them did take some flack from the right on it. So they'd have to basically be reversing their votes in order to do it. So I have not seen enough that are willing to do that to where you would be able to change. Now, that may change going forward. I think it would also depend on how much pressure they get from the grassroots on some of this stuff. But of all the votes that the Florida legislature has taken in the last 20 years, I mean, this was definitely one of the most high-profile votes. So I think that those members' willingness to flip on it has been pretty limited.
Talking with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and red flag law and all the considerations with due process, you mentioned in the context of so many things that have happened in recent years, especially with abuses that we've seen at the DOJ, at the FBI. I have to ask you this, just based on some of the quotes that we've seen in the past week. Do you agree with giving the FBI a new and spectacular building in D.C., Governor?
Absolutely not. I mean, I was shocked when Donald Trump came out and endorsed that. He promised in 2016 to drain the swamp. That's fortifying the swamp. So no, we wouldn't do that. It's over $1 billion. But then you also have the interest of just the issue of accumulation of power inside D.C. We've created a separate bureaucratic class that is distinct from the great body of the American people. That was not what the founding fathers intended. And I think part of the problem with the FBI has been the fact that DC politics has really just infected it in ways that are producing people like a Peter Strzok or a McCabe. So no, not only would I not do that, I would move as many agencies out of DC as you can.
Yeah. I saw a soundbite. I'm not going to, I'm just going to rehash. I'm sure you've seen it. Nikki Haley, former Governor Nikki Haley, was in New Hampshire saying that the order of things, Iowa, they cast their votes, and then New Hampshire corrects it, and South Carolina brings it home. I don't understand what New Hampshire corrects following the votes coming out of the Iowa caucuses, Governor. Maybe there's some understanding of how this works that I don't get. Can you explain that for us?
No, look, I mean, I think it was very disrespectful to Iowa voters because she's saying that those results need to, quote, be corrected. I think it's because she's seeing that she doesn't have a lot of support in Iowa. She is spending, and her Wall Street allies and liberal donors are spending an ungodly amount of money attacking me. I've had $40 million spent against me. That's more than has been spent against both Biden and Trump combined in this election cycle. And it's more that's been spent against all other Republicans combined just against me. So that's what they're doing. But yes, it just shows you she does have contempt for people out here in Iowa. She's really gravitated to these Wall Street donors. She's bragged about being close with people like Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. She's getting money from the founder of LinkedIn, who's one of the most significant left-wing donors in the country. And so I think that's the company she's keeping. So she looks in Iowa, you have a lot of people that are hardworking, patriotic, God-fearing, people that farm, people that own small businesses. And I just think she thinks she's above it. So I think that comment is going to hurt her down the stretch here in Iowa. But I think it's been one thing after another, Dana, with Nikki Haley. You know, she was really, her candidacy has been created by the media, and they've been pumping her up. But yet you watch how she's performed under a little bit of scrutiny. She's had a lot of difficulty to basically just go a single day without putting her foot in her mouth.
And speaking of the media with us, talking with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, I know that you have a debate coming up with Nikki Haley. Of the, I guess, the top three in the Republican primary, one of them is not going to be participating. Instead, they're going to be doing a debate with another network on the exact same night. That seems a little difficult for voters to follow. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. I don't know why everybody can't get together and just have a debate, or why the RNC can't say, look, if you want to do this, then everybody come and debate.
Well, so the RNC just got out of the process. And so these are debates that are offered. So CNN offered to do a debate. I accepted. Donald Trump declined. Nikki Haley accepted. So we're going to do that on January 10th at 9 o'clock. And then just the other day, Fox News announced they're going to do a town hall with Donald Trump at the exact same time. So they're basically giving him a lifeline and making it easier for him to duck the debate. So he's going to be in Iowa. Why not just debate the other candidates? He's not been willing to do that thus far. And I think it's a strategic decision because he doesn't want to have to explain his quote about taking the guns first, going through due process later. He doesn't want to have to explain why he didn't fire Dr. Fauci. He doesn't want to have to explain why he didn't do anything to combat the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. He doesn't want to have to acknowledge the $7.8 trillion he added to the debt. So it's like, I think all of us should be held accountable, Dana. I don't think it's healthy for the conservative movement, you know, to have one candidate that is not subjected to scrutiny. But that's kind of what it's been. And I think, quite frankly, Fox News has bailed him out by allowing him not to debate.
But you're supposed to be the establishment candidate. That doesn't make sense, because I was told, I'm reliably informed by everybody on the internet, that it's Ron DeSantis that's the guy who created the Freedom Caucus that the establishment hated back in 08, 09, and 10, 11, 12. I thought you were the establishment guy.
And if you look at what we've done in Florida, I've beat the left more than any other Republican in modern times. We beat the teachers union, we beat Soros, we beat Fauci, we beat the Florida Democratic Party, we beat the ACLU and the left. We've done that time and time again in ways that have upset a lot of the big establishment donors. And so you have Donald Trump. He's endorsed by the entire Republican leadership in D.C. in the U.S. House. So how is that anti-establishment when you're being endorsed by those folks? I'm endorsed by people like Governor Kim Reynolds, one of the strongest conservative governors in America, Congressman Chip Roy, clearly not an establishment congressman, Tom Massey, great Second Amendment advocate. So I'm really the candidate of the conservative grassroots. I'm the one that's been able to deliver a lot. I know Nikki Haley's kind of got her liberal donors. Donald Trump's got the entrenched DC establishment lined up behind him. But not only do I have the best record, I'm also running on the boldest conservative agenda. A lot of the stuff Donald Trump's running on, quite frankly, he ran on in 2016 and didn't deliver. I've delivered on 100% of my promises. And so people can, with me, they can expect that anything I'm telling you right now, I'm going to follow through with and do. And the way I sum up the primary at this point is very simple. Donald Trump's running for his issues. Nikki Haley's running for her donors' issues. I'm running for your issues, your family's issues, and to turn this country around.
Last, super quick, yes or no question for you, Governor, before we let you go. We know you're very busy. If you have Congress as president that delivers you an abolishment of the ATF, you would sign it?
Yes.
There you go. Governor Ron DeSantis, appreciate your time. Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks.
Safe travels.